Hey Roland, it's Matt here. So thanks again so much for the questions. Hopefully we'll have time to sort of meet up today at some point. I'm sure we will. But in the meantime, I figured I would just make this quick video again. This way you can always refer back to it. Just in case. And so basic idea, yeah, first things first, as you found, we have that login LDAP example job. And I would just quickly point out, in case you hadn't seen before, the majority of what we do in that job is in this PHP block, as you already saw, where we kind of fill in these values. There is a little shortcut. I mentioned yesterday that we can go in and we can enable error logging. So, I mean, we definitely want to still do that. So enable error logging on the server, so errors are actually logged. That's not going to help just for now, but for obviously later when the server is actually running in a production type mode, or if you get some other server running in that mode. So that's important. But there's another quick way that you can actually sort of get error messages that can also be useful, and that is under the page JavaScript code right here. We have this little sample block that you can add, and it is let's see here, PHP, there it is, PHP error override block. So if you click this, basically it's going to add this little block of PHP to the code. In fact, it turns out this is exactly where we want to be, is because this is where this code is. But just in case you haven't seen this too, we get to this code, of course, by clicking this, or we go to PHP ASP top code, and then it shows it right here. And so basically what this little code snippet does is you just turn this from a 0 to a 1, and then it'll display messages on your page as well. So this could be like a nice little override if you're in a production setting and you want to, for some reason, just display error messages on the page if you're trying to do something. Anyway, so with that set then, yeah, as you already said, we have our properties right here. If we're not connecting or something like that, then the error messages should hopefully give us a reason why. But then really the big thing is this right here. So debug LDAP. So I think, let's see here. So debug LDAP is set to false. If you set this to true, what this little variable is going to do down here is it's just going to go through every single LDAP entry that you have, and it's going to what's called printar, so it'll print it off. So this is then where you would essentially enable this debug LDAP, and this is then going to print out every single attribute that you have, and then you would essentially use that as a session variable. So in other words, if you find the element that you want, you would then say basically session, and as you say, AD, let's say name, is equal to whatever this data field is. So it'll be something like data, and then it'll be like, name, and then it might be a nested array, so it might be like the first index or something. Obviously you have to kind of look at what this display is on your page to see how you grab that out. But the idea then is this session AD name, this is now the key to sort of retrieving other fields. And as I may have mentioned yesterday, that one of the keys to this is that once we have those types of fields, we can use our tokens. And so generally speaking, when we have a multi-step job like this, the LDAP login job will be a separate job. And we basically say on this page, for example, once we've logged in, we would issue let's say a code block right here. And this code block is going to issue PHP code to redirect us to another job. And that is done using the header command. And the header just takes location and then colon, the name of a page, and before that, the actual full URL. So we create a second job in here somewhere. I would run the job, grab the URL from that, and then just paste it in right here. And then that's going to point us back to it. Now, when we're in that second job, so kind of simulate that, we would have obviously our standard form page workflow right here, but we might have our input fields. And at that point then, as I mentioned, we have this well, let me put it right here just so you can see it. We have the session AD name variable that we save from the login. To use this as a token, and for example, to populate as a name, because this is a session variable, I'll use the S token. So notice down there it's S, and then between braces the name of the field. So I would usually say S brace name of the field and close off the brace. And then this would then print that user's name. And then of course we can use this token basically anywhere. So if I had a database query, so I want to actually grab some fields from this request, I'd say select all or select whatever from this table, and then passing this, where name equals some value, and the value then passing in is this SAD. Now I don't know if I went over this before, but we use parameterized queries in RackForms. So basically, anytime we want to pass a parameter, I use a $sign, a question mark to say there's going to be a variable here, and then the value of the variable goes right here. And if there's multiple question marks, as in multiple variables, you just create a comma delimited list of any other items that you have. So yeah, so that would be that. So that, in other words, would be the start of how we'd actually pull these values out. The PDF, can you upload a PDF and use those fields to update a SQL field? Yeah, we can. It all depends on the PDF file itself, though. So this is very much a question of garbage in, garbage out. And that's not to disparage anybody's PDFs, but generally speaking, the PDF conversion process can get a little bit sketchy depending on the type of PDF it is and so on. The only type of forms that we support in RackForms are RackForms. So in other words, the PDF that you'd have to be working with would have to have been created with Acrobat and using the RackForms format. I'm sure there's probably other programs that create RackForms, but basically the PDF reader, what is it? PDF, no, what is that program? Acrobat, that's right. Acrobat is the only program I know that probably does that well. So the idea would be then that your Acrobat form, you would go in and you would hit the form wizard, and then you would drag and drop your PDF onto this box, and then you can convert it either into a mobile ready form where it just attempts to grab all of your form fields out from the PDF, or you can do a standard one-to-one conversion where it just tries to keep the formatting and images for you. And then, yeah, from there, you basically have a form that has, if you had in the Acrobat file a field called name, you would then have a field called name in your form. And again, the real key here is while RackForms does great with some forms like this, depending on the quality of the PDF, it's going to vary considerably. So if the PDF original that you're using had really cleanly named fields, and everything was logically laid out, and you had, for example, radio items that were actually mutually exclusive and whatnot, RackForms should do a pretty good job, as long as we tweak a few of these settings here when it comes to like display and whatnot, should do a pretty good job of converting those. But if the PDF either doesn't have an acroform, or the acroform wasn't set up very well, like it's got non-standard names or kind of generic names and whatnot, it may not be much use to you, just because RackForms can only convert what it has from the original file. So anyway, I'll leave it at for now. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I assume we'll meet up at some point today.